Hello everyone and welcome to the channel and my next Escape from Tarkov video. This video is going to be a loot run guide for Reserve. Now as the title implies, this is geared to looting Reserve, not fighting PMCs or going after Glukar. In fact, the whole premise will be to avoid those higher risk situations so you can up your survival rate on Reserve. Reserve is not a simple map to break down, and in my opinion is one of the most dynamic maps in Tarkov right now. It changes from very aggressive PvP to rat loot heaven to hell on earth because you ran into Glukar all within 10 minutes, and not always in the same order. Reserve combines close quarters fighting, long-range sniping, open fields, tunnels, and multi-level buildings into one map that is massive in its scale. It means no one way is the best way to loot this map. So I'm going to break down a few strategies for you to loot this map. That way you can pick up what fits your playstyle, budget, or specific situation. I'm not going to go through every location and building on Reserve, just the ones that I'll be hitting during the loot runs discussed in this video. I also highly suggest you don't run Reserve without a Red Rebel ice pick and a decent amount of keys. There are other places to get loot that are far easier to survive if you don't have these. So check out my customs loot guide. These are much safer and thus more profitable than if you're trying to extract on Reserve through the manhole, hermetic door, or D2 extract. First we'll discuss spawns, and I'm going to lump these spawns into a few areas. They aren't black and white areas, and there is some crossover spawns that apply to multiple areas. Also keep in mind that a recent update shifted the spawns from the specific points on this map. I have spawned in most of them, but occasionally I get surprised by a new spawn. So instead of getting bound up on the exact locations, look at each of these as an area that you spawn in. So we'll start at the top of the map by dome. There are two spawns up here, but two other spawns that cross over. We'll call these dome spawns. Next to the two echo spawns, these are the two field spawns by the anti-aircraft emplacements. Next up is the heating pipe spawn over here, and these do bleed over into the echo spawns and the Bravo buildings where the mark room is, which is where our next group of spawns are. Continuing around the map, we have Echo 2 spawns, followed by the night spawns. Like I said, these spawns are grouped into rough areas, but this is how I start to visualize my runs as I spawn in. I'll order these spawns from best to worst for pulling off a successful loot run. First up is the dome spawns. Second best is night spawns. Third is heating pipe. Fourth is Echo 2 spawns. Fifth is the Echo spawns. And the worst spawn in my opinion is the Bravo spawns. The two dome spawns up top leave you with two options. The first one is to hit the RB KPRL room and its unlocked neighbor for the safes and intel spawns. Then head down to White King and loot that building. The second route from dome is to go into the tunnels and bunkers. You can get to the D2 extract faster than anyone else, and there are some good loot spawns down here. Check all the server racks for military tech spawns, including the possible double ASA spawn down here, the office with a safe, computer, and tech spawns. Then if you want to go down into D2 for the loot right there before the extract, there's a tech spawn right on the door sitting on the floor, as well as bags and jackets. And if you're lucky enough that somebody turned the power on for you, you can get out before anyone else. If you go to White King from either the basement or running straight there, loot the two server rooms, this conference room where intel spawns on the table and on the filing cabinet. The KB KORL key also spawns on the table here as well. Next, go up and loot the second and third floors, scooping up anything worth picking up. On the second floor, you have more tech spawns in these rooms. The spawn rates aren't high, but I found graphics cards and Tetrises on this room on the end, so keep an eye out. Up on the third floor, you have an office on the side of the building facing White Bishop. The desk to the right, as you walk in, spawns intel. The storage type room on the other end of the building over by the garage spawns fuel and filters on its shelves, so it's always worth looking in here. There's also a little side office on the way to the roof of the gym that has a weapon box. Now there is good loot on the roof, but it's pretty dangerous to go for. You can be shot from a ton of different directions here as you're right in the middle of the map. But there are loads of ammo spawns and a military tech spawn right underneath the satellite dish on the very top. After this, you're where you need to make your first difficult choice. If you've picked up enough loot for you, and you don't care about a run through, you can make a beeline right for the extract. And then smash that like button because you're going to make so much money off of this run. A lot of people will actually do these loot runs with no backpack with the intent of just going to manhole right away. A lot of items you find in here are worth just vendoring, even if they are worth more on the flea market. Signal transmitters, military cables, circuit boards, iridiums, and phase arrays are all worth a ton just selling them to vendors. So if you don't care about run-throughs, good money can be made just running to manhole as fast as you can each raid. So let's assume you haven't picked up enough loot to make the run worthwhile. At this point, I will usually head for the basement and bunker system if I haven't gone there already. The key here is to check these 3 supply crates. Even the food crate is worth checking for the squash and canned food and MREs. Next is checking all the desks for intel and the server racks in the back by the power switch. Then get out. Do not linger in the basement or you will get caught up in a fight. If I get the heebie-jeebies down here or I hear other players, I go back up top. Now, I don't include these 2 key rooms of the basement of White King because the keys are very expensive and can take a while to pay for themselves. But if you have them, don't hesitate to stop. There is an intel spawn in this room and a military battery spawn in the other one. But there are other keys you should get first before these 2. Next up, I'll check White Bishop for some quick med spawns and the locked room RBSMP. This is one of the best value keys on reserve, and I highly recommend picking up as one of your first keys. It'll make up for itself in just the first few runs, and supposedly a LEDX can spawn in here, though I've never found one myself, and I've come into this room hundreds of times. But you will get golden stars, ophthalmoscopes, stims, and other high-value meds. And more often than not, this building isn't very contested. After White Bishop, I go to Black Knight. There are 28 filing cabinets in Black Knight, a half a dozen computers, tons of jackets, a possible graphics card spawn here on this desk on the first floor. If you have the RBMP21 and RBMP12 keys, these 2 locked rooms spawn military batteries, intels, they have crates, jackets, filing cabinets, and valuable loose loot. These 2 keys are cheap and return their investment very quickly. If Black Knight is not available because of Gluhar or PMCs, I'll go to White Pawn instead. Without keys, the only place really worth checking is the roof, but it's packed full of loot. There's a fuel spawn, a tech spawn, the tent is full of weapon parts and ammo. There's a weapon crates, jackets, and duffel bags with tons of other loose loot spawns up here as well. The 2 keyed rooms are the RBORB1 and RBORB2. These are also good keys to pick up. The weapon parts, ammo, and occasional golden chains are worth the cost of these keys and will quickly pay you back. The thing to remember about reserve if you're doing loot runs is to only loot 2 or 3 buildings and get out. The longer you wait around, the sooner you're going to be running into players. If you've looted enough stuff, you will have enough XP not to get pinged for the found in raid status, but it's best to try and find a scab to pick off to seal the deal. That being said, a run through is still better than dying, especially with a lot of the loot on reserve. The last route applies to the night spawn areas as well. I skip over Black Knight when I spawn here because you want to get to White King first to get loot before any other loot runners do, and to get out before any other geared players show up. If you spawn at Heating Pipe, my route is going to take me straight into White King. You have to be careful to your left of for echo spawns if that's how you're going to go around White Bishop. But if you go right around White Bishop, you risk getting nuked by Gluhar if he spawns at the Knights. I've definitely caught my fair share of airburst grenades right on this corner. If you spawn at Echo 2, I quickly check around the bunker and around all the tanks for OFZ shells and aces. Remember, one can spawn in the freezer of this fridge or on the table on the other side. Be careful though, as anyone who spawns Dome has good vision on this area and will take shots at you if they see you. After this, my route heads into the back of the garages next to White Knight, going for the RBST room. This key is very expensive, but the loot in here is very much worth it. You can get multiple OFC shells, military batteries, aces, high-end weapon parts, ammo, grenades, and other really good stuff. After here, I go into White Knight and check the first floor for the intel spawns, then head to the 3rd floor. There are a ton of good weapon part spawns on the roof, and in this room in the end. There's also intel and aces spawns, so don't skip these rooms. I will drop down through the hole on the roof to the 2nd floor, check this table on the end for loot, as well as the open rooms. Hop up over the chair and out the window and push over to Black Knight. The 2 keys for this building, MP23 and MP13, are very expensive. If you have them, great, use them. But again, there are many other keys you should get before these. Needless to say, at this point, I'm usually full of loot and I head for the extract. But sometimes it's worth checking to see if White King is looted or not. If I land aces, intels, or OFZ shells, I often ditch my bag and head for the manhole extract. If you spawn at Bravo buildings and you don't have a marked room key, you need to get out of here as fast as you can. You have to get to White Knight or White King straight away. If you have the marked room key, by all means stop and check it. You should also have the RBAO key as well though. This will pay for itself usually in one run, even though it's worth over 130k. If you do happen to snag some high-end loot out of these rooms, the best way I found to get out is the long way. I'll run along the wall to Heating Pipe, cross by Scavlands, loop all the way around Echo Field, run along the base of Dome, and head for Manhole. If you have a backpack, you'll have to get your way into D2 or use the cliff descent, if you have the Red Rebel. Either way, I almost always avoid crossing Echo 2 when I'm doing loot runs. People camp this specifically waiting for people to come from marked room. So the last group of spawns to talk about is the one in Echo Field. If you spawn on the side Black Bishop faces, that should be your target. Get into Black Bishop as fast as possible, but watch for people exploiting the spawns. I'd say 1 out of 3 times I get shot at or shoot someone near this road. In Black Bishop, you should just head straight for the 3rd floor. All 4 main rooms spawn tech items on the shelves, and the drop-down room on the 3rd floor actually has 2 or 3 spawns that a lot of people look over, so check them. They are near the toolbox on the box and chair as well over by the window. After that, quickly drop down, clear this room out, and get out of it ASAP. This room is almost always contested, and your best bet is to get in, get out, and run the opposite direction of any footsteps you hear. If you can safely loot the RBAM room after the drop-down room, it should be a high priority on your list. This room is one of the most valuable rooms on the map. It has an intel spawn, FP100 filters, fire steel, tech spawns, 3 toolboxes, jackets, weapon boxes, and high-end loose loot weapon part spawns on the desk. After this, I go to White King, and that's it. 9 out of 10 times, if I've survived this far, I've got between 500 and 700k in loot on me, and it's time to extract, whether that be through manhole or cliff descent. If you spawn at either of these 2 spawns, this is another marked room run. The idea is to get into the basement of Black Pond ASAP, hit up the marked room and the RBTB room, then head for the bunker network and loot down there. At this point, I usually head for D2, but you always risk extract campers here. I find myself more often than not doubling back, checking the 3rd floor of White Pond, then heading for cliff descent extract. You do have the opportunity to loot White King as well, so do what you feel is safest. Now these loot runs apply to however you're geared. Obviously, if you're doing the manhole extract, you won't have a bag. And many people actually do this with a TV-110 rig or an M1 rig, and just a pistol. It limits your cost and raids to under 120k or less, and maximizes your upside. A lot of people frown on this type of run, but the game is currently set up to reward it. So you play the game how you want to and ignore what other people think. Just keep in mind you're a lightly armed loot pinata like this, and most experienced players on reserve know how to time their rotations to find you and kill you. If I'm doing loot runs, I go in budget. I rock a TV-110, the Terminator backpack, a PP-19, and a 6B47 helmet if any at all. I also make sure to have a docs case as it increases the room in your secure container by a ton. On some of my more epic runs, I've had 3 Intels, several SSDs, thumb drives, and $400 or $500 US in the docs case alone. You can also play reserve geared to the nines. When I'm playing with friends, this is usually how I roll. It allows us to fight raiders a lot more efficiently and hunt glue car if we hear them on the map. If you're running like this though, I suggest you focus more on fighting than looting. I catch a lot of geared players paying more attention to loot and heads down in their inventory, which means I end up upgrading from my TV-110 and PP-19 to killer armor, airframe, and a meta M4. Now all of these can be combined in some form or another if you'd like. And sometimes you really have to adjust depending on your spawn, what loot you find, and what extracts you have available to you based on shots. You could roll in like a Chad, find 2 aces and an OFZ shell, and decide to bail out at manhole and abandon your backpack because you have over 1 million rubles in loot on you already. Or you could come in with the intent of a smash and grab at White King, stumble across a few dead players who got murked by Gluhar, gear up, and now you're a high-tier operator who can fight the rest of the server single-handedly. So take all of these in stride and just try to learn the map a little more each time you play. It's my favorite map and one that I've honestly had the most fun on. And I owe that to understanding this map. The more you learn, the more fun you will have. Well, that wraps up the video. I hope you guys liked it. If so, make sure you hit that like button. It helps out a ton with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you haven't yet, subscribe so you see when new content shows up. I stream on Twitch most weeknights, so come by and say hi there if you want to. And we have a Discord full of chilled, laid-back people who love to help out and answer questions, as well as brag about some of our awesome loot. So the link for that's down in the description too, so you can join there if you want to. Lastly, as always, thank you guys for watching the video. Your support is amazing and helps out in more ways than you guys can imagine. So with that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you in Tarkov.